They whispered that the Alpha King was a monster who broke everything beautiful he touched. His curse had already claimed 12 women, each one screaming as the life drained from their eyes in 3 merciless days. Then, on the night lightning tore the sky above Blackstone Keep, I, Liona Vale, untouched and trembling, became number 13. He pinned me against ancient bookshelves, his massive hand cradling my face like I was already his prey, golden eyes burning through the dark. His voice was gravel and hunger. I'll claim every inch of you until you break, little Omega. What was meant to be my ruin became the most dangerous thing of all, a love that could either shatter the curse or shatter us forever. Find your darkest corner. Let the storm drown out the world. Because this begins with me trapped in his arms, heart racing, already falling. The fire had guttered out long before midnight, leaving only a faint ghost of warmth in the ashes. I knelt on the dirt floor beside Mama's pallet, dipping the rag into the last of the icy water bucket and pressing it to her forehead again. Her skin burned under my fingers, fever-bright and fragile, her breaths coming in shallow, rattling pulls. Across the room, Torin huddled beneath the one blanket we still had, his small body curled tight like he could make himself disappear from the hunger. 7 years old, and already his eyes looked ancient. "Shoo, Mama," I whispered, though she hadn't spoken in hours. "Just rest. I've got you." A lie. We both knew it. The healer had come 3 days ago, shaken her head at the empty coin purse, and left without another word. No herbs. No medicine. Only the promise of another dawn we might not see. Outside, the storm howled louder, wind clawing at the cracks in the walls like it wanted in. Thunder rolled low and endless, shaking the timbers. Then came the knocks. 3. Heavy. Deliberate. The sound punched through the cottage like a fist. Torin whimpered. Mama's eyelids fluttered. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack them. I stood on shaking legs, crossed the small room, and opened the door before the second set could land. Winter rushed in, carrying 3 men in black and silver livery. Royal guards. Their faces were carved from granite, eyes flat and unreadable beneath hooded cloaks dripping snow. The leader stepped forward, boots thudding on the threshold. "Liona Vale," he said, voice clipped and cold. "By decree of His Majesty Kalin Dravmont, Alpha King of Erinda and Lord of the Northern Territories, you are summoned to Blackstone Keep. Immediately." The words landed like stones in my stomach. I knew the stories. Everyone did. The cursed king. The beast in human skin. Women summoned to his bed never returned alive. 3 days. Screams. Then silence. There must be some mistake. I managed, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm no one. Just a servant's daughter." The guard didn't blink. "His Majesty does not explain his commands. A carriage waits." Behind me, Torin's small voice cracked. "Liona?" Mama tried to sit up, one trembling hand reaching. "No, not my girl." I turned back to them, throat tight. Mama's eyes were wide with fever and terror. Torin clutched the blanket like it could shield him from what was coming. They were dying here, slowly, quietly, and I had nothing left to give them but this. One chance. I knelt beside Mama first, pressing my lips to her burning forehead. "I'll come back," I whispered. "I promise." Another lie. Then Torin. I pulled him into my arms, felt every sharp rib against my chest. "Be brave for Mama," I said into his hair. "I'll bring bread. Medicine. Everything." His arms tightened around my neck. "You promise." I swallowed the sob. "I promise." I had nothing to pack. Only the thin shawl draped over the chair, worn thin, but still the warmest thing I owned. I wrapped it around my shoulders and stepped past the guards into the snow. The door closed behind me with a final, hollow thud. The carriage was black as pitch, trimmed in silver that caught the faint moonlight like blades. The horses were enormous, breath steaming in plumes, eyes glowing unnatural amber. Lycan bread. They didn't move until I was inside. The door shut. The carriage lurched forward. Through the small window, I watched our cottage shrink, then vanish into swirling white. The ride stretched into forever, endless jolting over frozen roads, thunder crashing overhead, my pulse a drum in my ears. Every bump felt like it was carrying me closer to death. I pressed my palms to my thighs to stop them shaking, tried to breathe past the terror clawing my throat. What did he want with me? An heir, the darkest whispers said. A body to slake the hunger the curse fed on. A sacrifice. I closed my eyes and saw Torrance hollow cheeks, Mama's labored breaths. Whatever he asked, I would give it. If it bought them one more day, one more breath, it was worth whatever came after. The horses slowed. Stopped. I opened my eyes. Blackstone Keep rose before us like a wound in the mountains, jagged black stone towers clawing at a storm-lashed sky, walls thick and windowless save for narrow slits that stared down like eyes. Lightning split the dark, illuminating iron gates shaped like gaping jaws. They groaned open without a sound. The guards pulled me out into biting wind. Snow soaked through my thin slippers in seconds. They flanked me, hands on sword hilts, and marched me through echoing courtyards empty of life. No torches. No voices. Only the howl of the storm and the crunch of boots on stone. Massive doors opened into a corridor that seemed to stretch into nothing, cold marble underfoot, walls lined with portraits of stern, beautiful faces that watched me pass with painted judgment. The air grew colder the deeper we went, my breath fogging in front of me. At the end of the hall, two enormous black doors carved with wolves mid-howl, amber eyes glinting. The guards pushed them open. "Enter," one said. "The king awaits." My legs wanted to run. My body screamed to flee. But I thought of Torrance small, hopeful voice asking for bread tomorrow, and I stepped inside. The throne room was vast, shadowed, freezing. Pillars of black stone rose into darkness. No fires burned. No banners softened the walls. At the far end, on a dais of polished obsidian, sat the throne. And on it sat him, Kalin Dravmont. He was larger than the stories made him, shoulders broad enough to carry kingdoms, frame wrapped in black that bled into the shadows around him. Dark hair fell to his shoulders in wild waves. A faint scar traced the sharp line of his jaw, but it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Molten gold, burning, empty and endless and hungry. They locked on me the moment I crossed the threshold. He rose slowly, fluid, predatory grace, and descended the steps. Each footfall echoed like thunder in my chest. Lightning flashed through high windows behind him, illuminating the powerful lines of his body, the way his shirt clung to muscle, the careless tilt of the obsidian crown he wore like a punishment. He stopped close enough that I could smell him: pine, smoke, raw alpha power, and something darker, something caged. His gaze raked over me, slow and deliberate, stripping every layer of courage I had left. Then he spoke, voice low and rough, gravel dragged over silk. "I will claim you completely until you break, little Omega." The words hit like a physical blow. My knees buckled. I caught myself on nothing, heart slamming so hard I thought it would burst. He tilted his head, studying me like prey that had just realized the trap. And when I'm finished, he murmured, stepping closer still, "You'll beg for more." He didn't touch me. Not yet. The words still hung between us like smoke. "I will ravage every inch of your virgin body until you break," and my legs had turned to water, but he only watched me sway, golden eyes unblinking, as though measuring how long it would take for terror to finish what his voice had started. Then he turned, gesturing with one large hand toward a shadowed archway at the side of the throne room. "Follow." I did. What choice was there? The corridor beyond was narrower, lit by faint sconces that threw long, flickering shadows. He walked ahead, broad back filling the space, every step deliberate. I kept my eyes on the floor, marble veined with silver, cold enough to bite through my thin slippers, because looking up meant seeing the way his shoulders rolled, the controlled power in each movement, and that made the fear twist tighter in my belly. We entered a smaller chamber, still grand, still freezing. A long table of dark wood dominated the center, flanked by high-backed chairs. Maps and scrolls lay scattered across it, but he ignored them, turning to face me again. Speak your price, Omega. His voice was quieter here, less thunder, more blade. I forced myself to meet his gaze. My family, I said, the words scraping out raw. My mother is dying of fever. My brother is starving. They need food, medicine, coin enough to live. If I give you what you want, you give them that. And you let me know they're safe. He studied me for a long moment. Lightning flashed outside the narrow windows, painting his face in stark white and black. The scar along his jaw gleamed. You understand what I ask in return. It wasn't a question. I swallowed. An air. And your body. Fully. Willingly or not, the curse does not care for consent, but I prefer it willing. His lips curved, not quite a smile. 3 days. That is all the time you have before the mark kills you. If you survive the claiming, if the child quickens, perhaps the moon goddess will be merciful. Perhaps not. Hate flared hot in my chest, hotter than the fear. He spoke of my death like a minor inconvenience, like weather. You're a monster, I whispered. I am cursed, he corrected, almost gently. And I am tired of watching women die in my bed. But the bloodline demands an heir, and the curse demands a price. You're the one fate delivered tonight. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, cutting through the chill of the room. His scent wrapped around me pine smoke, dark earth, something feral and male that made my pulse stutter in ways I hated. Do we have an agreement, Liona Vale? I thought of Torrens' hollow cheeks. Mama's rattling breaths. The empty cupboard. The way the storm outside sounded like it wanted to tear the world apart. Yes, I said. The word tasted like ash. He nodded once. Then it is done. He lifted a hand, slow, deliberate, and brushed the backs of his knuckles along my cheek. The touch was featherlight, but it burned. I flinched anyway. Take her to her chambers, he told someone behind me. I hadn't even noticed the silent servants who had appeared like smoke. Prepare her. 2 women in dark gray gowns stepped forward, heads bowed. They didn't meet my eyes. He turned away without another word. They led me through more corridors, up spiraling stairs, until we reached a heavy oak door carved with crescent moons. Inside, the room was warmer than anything I'd felt in weeks. A fire roared in the massive hearth. Thick rugs muffled the stone floor. A 4-poster bed draped in deep velvet dominated one wall. Candles burned everywhere, their light soft and golden. It should have felt like luxury. Instead, it felt like a beautiful cage. The servants moved with quiet efficiency. One drew a bath in an adjoining marble chamber, steam rising in fragrant curls, rose and lavender, scents I hadn't smelled since childhood. They undressed me without ceremony, peeling away my sodden shawl and threadbare dress until I stood naked and shivering. I tried to cover myself, arms crossed over my chest, but they gently pulled my hands away. His Majesty wishes you prepared, one murmured. No marks of the road. The water was blissfully hot. They washed my hair, scrubbed my skin with soft cloths until it glowed pink, anointed me with oils that left me slick and scented. I sat like a doll, letting them move me, my mind numb. Every touch reminded me, this body was no longer entirely mine. It belonged to the bargain now. When they finished, they wrapped me in crimson silk, a gown so thin it clung to every curve, slit high on one thigh, neckline plunging low enough to bare the tops of my breasts. It felt like liquid fire against my skin. Chains disguised as elegance. They brushed my long brown hair until it shone, left it loose down my back. No jewelry, no shoes, bare feet on the rug. Then they left. The door closed with a soft click. I was alone. I crossed to the tall mirror against the far wall and stared at the stranger reflected there. Pale skin flushed from the bath, wide hazel eyes shadowed with fear, lips parted like I'd forgotten how to breathe. The crimson silk hugged me like a lover's hands, too tight, too revealing, too much. I looked like prey dressed for slaughter. My fingers trembled as I traced the neckline, feeling the rapid flutter of my pulse beneath. He would come tonight, or tomorrow, or the next. 3 days. That was all I had. The fire had burned low, casting long, wavering shadows across the chamber. I hadn't moved from the edge of the bed since the servants left, knees drawn up, arms wrapped tight around myself, crimson silk whispering against my skin with every shallow breath. The gown felt heavier now, like it had absorbed the weight of the bargain I'd made. Every crackle of the logs reminded me how little time I had left. Midnight came without warning. No clock chimed. No bell tolled. Only the sudden shift in the air, thicker, warmer, charged like the moment before lightning strikes. The door opened silently. He stepped inside, and the room seemed to shrink around him. Kalin Dravmont filled the doorway, shadows clinging to his broad frame like they belonged there. He wore no crown now, only a loose black shirt unbuttoned at the throat, sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark trousers that hugged powerful thighs. His hair was tousled, as though he'd run restless hands through it. But his eyes, those molten gold eyes, burned brighter than the fire. He closed the door with a soft click that echoed like a lock turning. I stood without thinking, heart slamming against my ribs. The silk slid against my legs as I backed up a step, then another, until my shoulders met the cold stone wall beside the hearth. He crossed the room in 3 long strides. His scent hit me first, pine sharp enough to cut, smoke curling warm and dark, and beneath it all the raw, unmistakable musk of alpha. It flooded my senses, dizzying, intoxicating, making my knees threaten to give out again. I pressed my palms flat to the wall behind me, needing something solid. He stopped inches away, close enough that I could feel the heat rolling off him, close enough to see the faint pulse at the base of his throat, the way his chest rose and fell with careful control. "Liona," he murmured. My name in his mouth sounded like a growl wrapped in velvet. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe properly. My body betrayed me, skin flushing hot, pulse throbbing low in my belly, a traitorous ache blooming within me even as terror clawed my throat. He lifted one hand slowly, deliberately, and braced it on the wall beside my head. The other came up to cut my jaw, gentle, almost tender, and tilted my face up to his. His thumb brushed the edge of my lower lip, parting it slightly. "You tremble," he said, voice rough. "Good. Fear keeps you honest." I swallowed. "I'm not afraid of you." A lie so thin it cracked on the air. His lips curved small, dangerous. "You should be." He leaned in. His mouth hovered over the pulse at my throat, breath hot against my skin. I felt the scrape of his teeth, sharp, teasing, before he spoke again. "I'm going to ruin you slowly, little Omega. Inch by inch. Until every part of you knows my name. Until you forget what it feels like to be untouched." A whimper escaped me, half terror, half something darker. His growl answered it, low and vibrating through my bones. His free hand slid down my side, fingers tracing the silk over my ribs, my waist, the curve of my hip. The touch was light, almost reverent, but the promise behind it made my breath hitch. He pressed closer, his presence overwhelming, pinning me fully to the wall. I should have fought, pushed him away, screamed. Instead, my hands came up, hesitant, shaking, and fisted in the open collar of his shirt. The fabric was warm from his skin. I felt the rapid beat of his heart beneath my knuckles. He stilled. Then his other hand moved, sliding up my arm, over my shoulder, into my hair. He tugged gently, tilting my head back further, exposing more of my throat. His mouth descended open, hot, teeth grazing the sensitive skin just below my ear. "Say yes," he rasped. "Say you want this." I hated how my body arched toward him. Hated the way I leaned into his touch, craving more despite the fear. His claws extended, slow, careful, tips pressing lightly against the silk at my waist. The faint pressure sent a jolt through me. And then he froze. Completely. His breath stuttered against my neck. The claws retracted as quickly as they'd appeared. His hand in my hair loosened, trembling now. I felt it, the war inside him. The curse rising like black smoke, trying to twist desire into destruction. His shoulders tensed, muscles locking as though fighting an invisible chain. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. Gold darkened to near black, pupils blown wide, warring with something feral and pained. "I won't kill you tonight," he said, voice cracked. "Not like this. Not yet." He stepped away, abrupt, like it cost him physically. The sudden absence of his heat left me cold, aching, unsteady against the wall. He dragged a hand over his face, claws fully gone now, breathing hard. "Go to the bed," he ordered, rough. "Sleep. Or pretend to. I won't touch you again until you ask." I stared at him, chest heaving, silk clinging damply to my skin where he'd pressed against me. "Why?" The words slipped out before I could stop it. His gaze flicked to mine, raw, unguarded for the first time. "Because if I take you now," he said quietly, "the curse will claim you before dawn. And I don't want that." He turned toward the door. "Rest, Liona." The door closed behind him. I slid down the wall until I sat on the rug, knees to my chest, trembling harder than before. Not from fear. From the dangerous, impossible spark that had ignited within me when his claws grazed me. Want. I wanted him. And that terrified me more than any curse ever could. The nights blurred after that first almost claiming. He didn't come to my chamber again, not like that. Instead, he sent word through silent servants, the library after moonrise. I went because refusing felt more dangerous than curiosity, and because the alternative was lying alone in crimson silk, replaying the press of his body against mine until sleep refused to come. The library was vast, shelves climbing into shadowed rafters, lit by a dozen low-burning braziers that threw warm gold across leather spines and cracked parchment. The air smelled of old paper, wax, and faint pine smoke, his scent always lingering as though the stones themselves remembered him. He was already there the first night, seated at a long oak table strewn with open tomes. No crown, no armor. Just a dark tunic stretched across his shoulders, sleeves pushed to his elbows, revealing corded forearms marked with faint silver scars that caught the firelight. He didn't look up when I entered, but I felt his awareness shift toward me like a predator sensing movement. I hesitated in the doorway, bare feet silent on the thick rugs. "Sit," he said without lifting his eyes from the page. I chose the chair opposite him, far enough to feel safe, close enough to see the way candlelight carved hollows beneath his sharp cheekbones. He read in silence for what felt like hours. Ancient texts in languages I couldn't decipher, his long fingers turning brittle pages with surprising care. I watched him, heart pounding too loud in my ears, memorizing the furrow between his brows, the way his jaw clenched when he reached a passage that displeased him, the slow rise and fall of his chest. Eventually he spoke, voice low, almost to himself. "This curse began before my grandfather's grandfather wore the crown. A moon goddess's punishment for a king who thought power meant taking without consequence." He closed the book gently. "Every heir since has carried it. Every woman who shares their bed dies." I swallowed. "And you keep trying." His gaze lifted then, gold meeting hazel, and for the first time I saw something raw flicker behind the predator's mask. Not hunger. Exhaustion. I have no choice. The bloodline demands continuation. The curse demands blood. A bitter laugh escaped him, short and humorless. "I've watched 13 women walk into this keep believing they could survive me. None did. Their screams still echo in these halls when the wind is right." My throat tightened. "You remember them all. Every name, every face, every plea." He leaned back, rubbing a hand over his scarred jaw. "Centuries of it. Loneliness is the least of what it costs. Centuries." The word landed heavy. He looked no older than 30, yet the weight in his voice spoke of ages. I didn't plan to move. My hand reached across the table anyway, slow, trembling until my fingertips brushed the back of his. He froze. I should have pulled away. Instead, I let my palm settle fully over his knuckles. His skin was warm, rough, alive with barely leashed power. He didn't flinch. Didn't pull back. For a long heartbeat we stayed like that, my small hand on his large one, the only point of contact in the vast, quiet room. Then he turned his hand over, slow as melting ice, and laced his fingers through mine. Heat raced up my arm, pulling low in my belly. My breath caught. He watched our joined hands like they belonged to strangers. "You should fear me more," he murmured. "I do," I whispered. "But I also don't." His thumb stroked the inside of my wrist, once, twice, deliberate, testing. My pulse jumped beneath his touch. His eyes darkened. He rose without releasing my hand, drawing me up with him. We met at the corner of the table. He backed me gently against the shelves, would cool through the silk at my back. His free hand came up to cradle my face, thumb tracing my lower lip the way it had that first night. Then he kissed me. Slow at first, almost careful, lips brushing mine like a question. I answered by rising on my toes, pressing closer, opening for him. The kiss deepened in an instant. He growled low in his throat, hand sliding into my hair, tilting my head to take more. His tongue stroked mine, claiming, hungry, and I met him with equal need, fingers digging into his shoulders. Heat exploded between us, liquid and urgent, a wave of desire that left me breathless and yearning. He broke the kiss with a ragged sound, forehead resting against mine, breathing hard. "Stop me," he rasped. I shook my head. His claws extended briefly, sharp tips hovering near the silk at my waist. He shuddered, fighting them back. I can feel it rising. The curse. If I don't stop now, then don't, I breathed, reckless. He growled again, half warning, half plea, and kissed me once more, fierce and desperate. But when his hand slid lower, fingers brushing my side, he froze again. Claws retracted. Body went rigid. He tore himself away, stepping back until the table was between us. "No," he said, voice cracked. "Not like this. Not when it could end you." I leaned against the shelves, chest heaving, lips swollen, skin flushed and tingling everywhere he touched. "You keep stopping," I said quietly, "because I can't bear to watch another woman die because of me." His eyes met mine, raw, haunted. "And because I don't want it to end in 3 days. Not with you." He turned toward the door, shoulders tense. "Tomorrow night," he said without looking back. Same time. The door closed softly behind him. I slid down the shelves until I sat on the rug, knees weak, heart thundering. He was terrified of killing me, and I was terrified of how much I wanted him to try. The whispers started like drafts through cracked stone, subtle at first, then insistent. I felt them in the halls when servants bowed a fraction too low, in the way guards' eyes lingered too long on the crimson silk I now wore like a second skin. The High Council, those stern-faced men and women who had served Kalin's line for generations, saw me not as a potential queen but as a crack in the foundation. An Omega who might survive. An outsider who might change everything. They moved quietly. Too quietly. It happened at the evening meal in the smaller dining hall, Kalin's attempt at something almost normal. Candles flickered on the long table, casting warm light over platters of roasted venison, fresh bread, fruits I hadn't tasted in years. He sat at the head, dark tunic open at the throat, watching me with that quiet intensity that made my skin hum. I sat to his right, closer than protocol demanded, our knees brushing beneath the table. A servant poured wine into my goblet, deep red, fragrant with cloves and something sharper I couldn't place. I lifted it to my lips. Kalin's hand shot out, fingers closing around my wrist before the rim touched my mouth. The goblet froze midair. His nostrils flared. A low, dangerous growl rumbled from his chest, primal, vibrating through the stone floor. "Poison," he said, voice flat with lethal calm. The word dropped like ice into the room. The servant, a young man with wide, terrified eyes, dropped the pitcher. It shattered on the flagstones. Wine spread dark and accusing. Council members at the far end of the table stiffened. Lord Vera, the eldest, rose slowly. "Your Majesty, surely." Kalin was already moving. He surged to his feet, chair scraping back with a screech. In one fluid motion, he vaulted the table, boots thudding as he landed beside the servant. Claws extended long, black, gleaming as he seized the man by the throat and lifted him off the floor. The servant choked, legs kicking uselessly. "Whose order?" Kalin snarled, voice barely human. The man's eyes darted toward the council table, toward Lord Vera and Lady Sereth, who had gone pale but not surprised. Kalin's head snapped toward them. His roar shook the rafters, pure alpha fury, echoing off stone until my ears rang. He flung the servant aside like a rag doll. The man crumpled, gasping. Kalin stalked toward the council, claws fully extended now, golden eyes blazing molten rage. "You dare," he said, each word a blade. "In my hall." under my roof. Lord Vera stepped forward, hands raised. She is a threat, Majesty. An Omega who might break the curse, upend the balance we have maintained for centuries. If she lives. Kalin's hand shot out, claws stopping a hair's breadth from Vera's throat. She lives because I will it. Touch her again, any of you, and I will paint these walls with your blood. The room went deathly still. I stood frozen, goblet still clutched in numb fingers, wine untouched. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. Kalin turned back to me, rage softening the instant his eyes met mine. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, took the goblet from my hand, and hurled it into the hearth. Flames hissed and flared violet as the poison burned. He cupped my face with careful hands, claws gone, only warm calluses now, and searched my eyes. Are you hurt? I shook my head, voice small. No. He exhaled, shoulders dropping a fraction. Then he scooped me into his arms, effortless, protective, and carried me from the hall without another word to the council. Their stunned silence followed us like a shadow. He didn't stop until we reached my chambers. The door shut behind us with a heavy thud. He set me gently on the edge of the bed, then knelt before me, massive frame folded, eyes level with mine. I should have seen it coming, he said quietly. They fear change more than death. I reached out, fingers trembling, and traced the scar along his jaw. You protected me. His hand covered mine, pressing it to his skin. I would tear the kingdom apart before I let them take you. The words landed soft, heavy. Something inside my chest cracked open, walls I'd built of fear and resentment crumbling under the weight of his protectiveness. I leaned forward. He met me halfway. No feral kiss this time. No claws. Just his arms wrapping around me, pulling me against his chest as he sank onto the rug beside the bed. I curled into him, head tucked under his chin, legs tangled with his, crimson silk pooling around us like spilled blood. His heartbeat thundered against my ear, steady and fierce. He held me like I was fragile and unbreakable at once. One hand stroked slow circles on my back, the other cradled the nape of my neck. You're more than sacrifice, Liona, he whispered into my hair. More than a vessel. More than a cure. You're you. And I find I cannot bear the thought of a world without you in it. Tears burned behind my eyes. I pressed closer, fingers curling into his tunic. I don't want to die in 3 days, I admitted, voice muffled against his chest. You won't. His arms tightened. Not if I have to fight the moon goddess herself. We stayed like that for hours, fire crackling low, storm rumbling distant beyond the walls. No words. No demands. Just the quiet rise and fall of his breathing, the warmth of his body shielding mine from the cold that had lived in my bones since the summons. For the first time since stepping into Blackstone Keep, I didn't feel like prey. I felt safe. And that scared me most of all, because safety with him meant I was already falling, curse or no curse. The storm came without warning, fiercer than any that had battered Blackstone Keep before. Wind screamed through the narrow windows like 1,000 voices in agony, rain lashing the stone walls in sheets. Lightning cracked the sky open again and again, illuminating the chamber in stark, blinding white. I stood at the tall arched window, arms wrapped around myself, crimson silk clinging damply to my skin from the chill that seeped through the cracks. Kalin paced behind me restless, shoulders tight, claws half extended then retracting as though he couldn't decide whether to fight or flee. He hadn't touched me since the poisoning. Not a brush of fingers. Not even a lingering look. The distance hurt more than any claw could. Thunder rolled so deep it vibrated in my bones. The candles guttered wildly. Then the air shifted, thickened, sweetened, like moonlight turned liquid. A silver glow bloomed in the center of the room, soft at first, then blinding. I shielded my eyes. When I lowered my arm, she was there. The moon goddess. She stood barefoot on the rug, silver hair cascading like liquid starlight, eyes the pale gray of winter dawn. Her gown shimmered, woven from mist and moonlight, clinging and flowing at once. Power radiated from her, not angry, not cruel, but ancient and inevitable. Kalin dropped to one knee instantly, head bowed. Goddess. She ignored him at first. Her gaze fixed on me, piercing, knowing, almost tender. "Liona Vale," she said, voice echoing inside my skull and out loud at once. "Child of forgotten stars. You have carried my bloodline quietly, hidden in poverty and hunger, waiting for the moment it would be needed." My breath caught. "Your bloodline." She stepped closer. The air warmed where she passed. "Celestial. Born of the moon's own light, meant to balance the darkness your mate carries. His curse is my judgment, arrogance punished across generations. But balance requires two. Not force, not sacrifice alone. Only mutual claiming, freely given, can unmake what I wrought." Kalin rose slowly, face pale. "Then let it end with me. Take the curse back. Spare her." The goddess turned her gaze to him, cool, unyielding. "The curse ends when the balance is restored. Or it consumes you both. There is no other path." Lightning flashed again, throwing her shadow long across the floor. She lifted a hand, palm open toward me. Silver light poured from her fingers, soft and warm, wrapping around my wrists like gentle chains. For a heartbeat, I felt it, power humming in my veins, silver threads weaving through my blood, awakening something that had slept my whole life. Strength. Light. The opposite of his shadowed hunger. "You were always meant for this," she said softly. "To stand in his darkness and not be consumed. To choose him and be chosen in return." The light faded. She stepped back, form already dissolving into mist. "Choose wisely, children of night and star. The storm will not wait." She vanished. The room plunged into shadow once more, candles flaring back to life as though nothing had happened. But everything had. Kalin turned to me, eyes wide with something close to panic. He crossed the distance in 2 strides, hands hovering near my arms without touching. "Run," he said, voice raw. "Take a horse from the stables. Ride south, through the passes before the snow seals them. I'll send word to your family. They'll be safe. Just go. Before the curse claims you because of me." I stared at him. Rain hammered the windows like fists. Thunder growled overhead. "No." His breath hitched. "Liona." "If I die," I whispered, stepping into the space between us until my chest brushed his, "I die yours." He made a broken sound, half growl, half sob, and his hands finally settled on my waist, careful, trembling. His forehead dropped to mine, eyes squeezed shut. "You don't understand what you're saying. 3 days. If I claim you and the curse, then we make them count." I lifted my hands to his face, thumbs tracing the scar along his jaw, the faint tremor in his muscles. "I'm not running from you. Not anymore." The goddess said mutual. "Willing. That means both of us choose. I choose you, Kalin Dravmont. Curse and all." He exhaled shakily, arms sliding around me, pulling me flush against him. His heartbeat thundered against my ear, wild, unsteady. "I've spent centuries convinced love was destruction," he murmured into my hair. "That wanting anything meant losing it. But you walked into my darkness and refused to leave. You saw the monster and chose the man anyway." I tilted my head back, meeting his gaze. Gold softened now, rimmed with something vulnerable and fierce. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Terrified. But I'd rather face whatever comes next with you than spend one more night wondering what might have been." He cupped my face, thumbs brushing my cheeks. For a long moment, he simply looked at me, like he was memorizing every line, every shadow, every spark of light the goddess had woken in my eyes. Then he kissed me. Slow, deep, not feral this time, but reverent, like a vow pressed against my lips. His hands slid down my back, gathering silk and skin, holding me as though I might vanish if he let go. I melted into him, fingers threading through his hair, tasting salt and storm and the faint edge of pine smoke on his tongue. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine again. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "when the storm breaks, we face it together. No more running. No more half measures." I nodded, tears slipping free. "Together." He lifted me then, gentle, effortless, and carried me to the bed. "Not to claim. Not yet." He laid me down and stretched beside me, pulling me into his arms until my back pressed to his chest, his hand splayed protectively over my heart. We lay like that as the storm raged on, his warmth seeping into my bones, his breath steady against my neck. For the first time since the summons, the cold inside me thawed. Not because the curse was gone, but because I had chosen to stay. And he had chosen to let me. The storm had never truly ended. It had only waited. Dawn should have broken soft and gray, but the sky outside the tall windows remained bruised purple, thunder rumbling like a warning that refused to fade. We had spent the night tangled in each other's arms, not claiming, not yet, just holding, breathing the same air, as though time might forget to move if we stayed still long enough. It didn't. The curse woke with the first crack of lightning that split the sky directly above the keep. Kalin stiffened against me, body going rigid in an instant. A low, pained growl tore from his throat, not the possessive rumble I'd grown used to, but something raw and breaking. His arms tightened around my waist, then shoved me away, hard enough that I stumbled back toward the bed. "Get out," he rasped, voice shredded. "Now. Run." I caught myself on the post, silk slipping against wood. "No." His head snapped up. Golden eyes had already bled to molten amber, wild, unfocused, pupils blown to black. Fangs lengthened as I watched, sharp and gleaming. Claws extended from his fingertips with a tearing scrape, gouging the rug. His shoulders hunched, bones shifting beneath skin that rippled like shadowed water. The curse wasn't rising. It was erupting. He lunged. Not to hold. Not to kiss. To claim and destroy. Massive hands, half human, half beast, slammed into the wall on either side of my head, splintering stone. His body pinned mine, heat and fury rolling off him in waves. Fangs hovered at my throat, breath hot and ragged. The growl that vibrated through his chest rattled my bones. "Last chance," he snarled, words barely intelligible around lengthening canines. "Run, or I end this." I didn't run. I lifted my hands, slow, steady despite the terror clawing my insides, and cupped his face. My thumbs traced the sharp line of his cheekbones, the scar along his jaw, the faint tremor that shook him even now. "Kalin," I said, voice soft but clear. "Look at me." His eyes, wild, fractured, locked on mine. Something flickered there, recognition fighting oblivion. "I'm not prey," I whispered. "I'm not sacrifice. I'm yours. And you're mine. See me." A shudder ripped through him, violent, full body. Claws dug deeper into the stone behind me, cracking it further. He pressed closer, fangs grazing the skin at my pulse, breath scorching. The frenzy surged in him, body trembling with barely contained force. But I didn't flinch. Silver light sparked beneath my skin, faint at first, like moonlight trapped in veins. Then brighter. Hotter. It poured from my palms where they cradled his face, threading up his arms, across his shoulders, into the wild tangle of his hair. He froze again. The light intensified, blinding, silver white, wrapping around us both like living chains. It sank into him, seeking the black threads of the curse that coiled through his blood, his soul. He roared, agony and rage, and something deeper, back arching as the two forces collided inside him. I gripped harder, nails pressing into his skin. "Fight it," I demanded, voice rising over the storm. "Fight for me. For us." His claws raked down the wall, tearing deep gouges. Fangs snapped inches from my throat, then stopped. Trembling. His eyes, still wild, searched mine desperately. "Liona." The word came out mangled, half growl, half plea. I surged forward, pressing my mouth to his in a kiss that tasted of storm and lightning. He groaned into it, broken, starving, and kissed me back with everything he had left: fury, fear, need. His body shuddered violently as the curse fought to tear him apart from the inside. I pulled back just enough to meet his gaze again. "You're not a monster," I said fiercely. "You're my mate. Choose me. Choose us." Something snapped inside him, not bone, not flesh, but the final chain of centuries-old punishment. The silver light exploded outward, brighter than the storm itself, flooding the chamber, searing through every shadow. Windows shattered in a cascade of glass. Tapestries caught fire and burned clean away. The curse screamed, a sound no living thing should make, then fractured, black threads dissolving into nothing under the relentless silver glow. Kalin's body convulsed once, twice, claws retracting with a sharp snap, fangs shortening, bones settling back into human shape. The wild gold in his eyes cleared, sharpening to warm amber, still bright but no longer feral. He collapsed against me, forehead dropping to my shoulder, arms wrapping around my waist as though I were the only thing keeping him upright. His breathing came in harsh, shuddering pulls. "It's gone," he whispered, voice cracked and reverent. "The hunger, the rage, the need to destroy. It's gone." I threaded my fingers through his hair, holding him close. Tears slipped down my cheeks, hot silent. "You fought," I said softly. "For me." He lifted his head, eyes searching mine, raw, vulnerable, alive in a way I'd never seen. "I fought because you refused to let me go." His hand came up, trembling, to cut my face. Thumb brushed away a tear. "You saw me. Not the beast. Not the curse. Me." I smiled through the tears. "I always did." He kissed me then, slow, deep, reverent. No claws. No frenzy. Just him, whole, unbroken, choosing me with every careful touch. The storm outside quieted to a gentle rumble, as though the sky itself had exhaled. We sank to the rug together, limbs tangled, hearts pounding in sync. His arms encircled me protectively, chin resting atop my head. 3 days, he murmured against my hair. We were supposed to have 3 days. And instead, forever. I pressed closer, listening to the steady beat of his heart, no longer shadowed, no longer cursed. "Forever sounds perfect," I whispered. He laughed, soft, genuine, the sound of a man remembering joy. And for the first time in centuries, Blackstone Keep felt like home. The storm had quieted to a low, restless murmur outside the shattered windows, but inside the chamber the air still crackled with leftover lightning. Kalin held me against him on the rug, our breaths sinking in the sudden hush, his forehead pressed to mine like he feared letting go would unravel everything we'd just fought for. The silver light still shimmered faintly under my skin, warm, steady, alive. His eyes, no longer wild, searched mine with a raw wonder that made my chest ache. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered, voice rough from the roar that had torn out of him moments ago. "You almost did." I lifted a hand to trace the line of his jaw, feeling the tremor that still lingered there. "But you came back." He exhaled shakily, then kissed me, slow at first, testing, as though he couldn't quite believe the curse no longer waited to steal the moment. I answered with everything I had left, need, relief, love so fierce it bordered on pain. My fingers knotted in his hair, pulling him closer. His hands slid down my back, gathering silk and skin, lifting me until I straddled his lap. We collided then, fierce, desperate, equal. No more hesitation. No more fear of claws or 3-day death. His mouth claimed mine with a growl that vibrated through both of us, deep and consuming, tasting like storm and pine and the man he'd finally let himself become. Heat surged between us, urgent and alive, every nerve singing under his touch. He tore the crimson silk open with careful hands, no claws now, just strong fingers, and pushed it off my shoulders. Cool air kissed my bare skin, raising gooseflesh, but his mouth followed instantly, hot, open kisses trailing down my throat, across my collarbone, reverent and hungry. I arched into him with a soft gasp, fingers digging into his shoulders as he worshipped every inch he could reach, his breath ragged against me. I tugged at his tunic, impatient. He helped me strip it away, revealing the broad expanse of his chest, scarred, powerful, flushed with want. My hands roamed greedily over muscle and warm skin, tracing every ridge, every mark that told the story of centuries alone. He shuddered under my touch, eyes darkening with something softer than lust, gratitude maybe, devotion. He lifted me again, laying me back on the thick rug beside the dying fire. The flames painted us both in gold and shadow as he settled over me, weight braced on his forearms so he could look down at me, really look. His gaze traced every curve, every line, drinking me in like I was the only thing that had ever mattered. Beautiful, he breathed, voice wrecked. So damn beautiful. He lowered his head and kissed a slow path down my body, every press of his lips igniting sparks beneath my skin. Pleasure coiled tight and fast as he explored me with aching tenderness, drawing soft cries from my throat until I was trembling, gasping his name like a prayer. Come for me, he murmured against my skin. Let me feel you. I shattered back, arching, silver light flaring bright beneath my skin again, waves of release crashing through me until I was boneless, panting, clinging to him. He rose over me then, kissing me deep so I tasted the storm and salt and him. He paused, eyes locked on mine, raw and reverent. Tell me you want this, he said, voice strained with the effort of holding back. Tell me you choose me. I choose you, I whispered, wrapping my legs around his waist, pulling him closer. Always. He entered me slowly, carefully, stretching me with a perfect, overwhelming fullness that made us both groan. For a long heartbeat we stayed like that, joined, still, breathing each other in, hearts hammering in perfect time. Then we moved. He rocked into me with deep, steady strokes, each one dragging waves of pleasure from places I didn't know existed. I met him thrust for thrust, nails raking down his back, hips rising to take him deeper, harder. Our rhythm built, fierce, desperate, equal, until the room echoed with ragged breaths, broken moans, the quiet sounds of two souls finally claiming each other. Silver light poured from me again, brighter now, weaving into the golden glow that shimmered beneath his skin. The two powers met, tangled, fused, moonlight and sunfire braiding together in a blinding helix. The curse's last black threads flared once, screaming, then shattered outward in a shockwave that cracked the castle walls, blew out every remaining window, sent tapestries ripping free. Kalin roared, not in pain, but release. His body shuddered above mine as the final chains dissolved. No claws returned. No fangs lengthened. His eyes cleared completely, warm amber, bright with tears and wonder. We came together, hard, simultaneous, shattering. My light surged one last time, marking us both, a silver-gold crescent blooming over my heart, mirrored on his. The bond snapped into place, not possession, but unity. Soul to soul. Equal. Whole. He collapsed over me, careful not to crush, forehead pressed to mine. Sweat-slick skin slid together. Hearts hammered in perfect sync. Mine, he growled, voice thick with emotion. Yours, I answered, smiling through tears. He kissed me softly, lingering, reverent, then gathered me close, rolling us so I lay draped across his chest. His arms encircled me like they'd never let go. The storm outside had finally broken. Pale dawn light slipped through the ruined windows, painting the chamber in soft gold. We were free, and we were home. Weeks passed like a dream I was afraid to wake from. Blackstone Keep no longer felt like a tomb. Sunlight poured through the newly repaired windows, larger now, framed in silver that caught the morning like captured stars. Fires roared in every hearth, chasing away centuries of chill. Servants moved with quick steps and quiet smiles, no longer flinching at shadows. Laughter drifted through the corridors, real laughter, the kind that startled birds from the battlements and made the stone walls remember warmth. I stood on the high balcony overlooking the courtyard, crimson gown traded for softer wool in deep midnight blue, the silver crescent mark over my heart hidden, but always felt. Below, children chased each other across fresh-laid cobblestones, their shrieks bright against the winter air. Torin was among them, cheeks flushed, no longer hollow, tossing a leather ball with boys twice his size. He looked up, spotted me, and waved so hard he nearly toppled over. I waved back, throat tight with something too big for words. Mama sat on a cushioned bench near the fountain, wrapped in thick furs, color returned to her face. The fever had broken the day after the curse shattered. Healers arrived with herbs and tonics I could never have afforded. She caught my eye and smiled, small, knowing, the smile of a mother who had once begged the gods to spare her daughter and now watched her rule beside a king. Kalin stepped up behind me, arms sliding around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. His scent pine, smoke, home, wrapped around me like the cloak he draped over my shoulders that first dawn. No claws. No shadows in his eyes. Just him. "They're thriving," he murmured against my hair. "Because of you." "Because of us," I corrected, leaning back into his warmth. He turned me gently to face him. The scar along his jaw caught the light. His amber eyes held the same quiet wonder they'd worn since the bond locked into place. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, thumb lingering on my cheek. "I still wake sometimes," he said softly, "thinking the curse is still there. Thinking I'll open my eyes and find you gone." I rose on my toes, pressing my lips to his slow, sure. "I'm not going anywhere." His arms tightened. "Good. Because I plan to spend every morning reminding you how much I love you. Every night showing you. And every moment in between proving I'm worthy of the woman brave enough to walk into darkness and refuse to fear the monster." I smiled against his mouth. Sometimes the monster just needed someone brave enough to love him. He laughed low, rich, the sound that still made my heart skip, and kissed me deeper, hands sliding up my back, holding me like I was the only solid thing in his world. We ruled side by side now. No throne for me yet, they were forging one of moonlight and obsidian to match his, but the council listened when I spoke. The borders were quiet. Famine retreated as fields thawed and trade routes reopened. Whispers of the cursed king had become songs of the redeemed Alpha and his celestial mate. Bards sang in taverns. Children played games where the brave Omega tamed the beast with love instead of swords. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in rose and gold, we sat in the restored library, our favorite place. Fires crackled low. Books lined the walls again, salvaged and rebound. Kalin read from an ancient tome of star lore while I curled against his side, head on his chest, listening to the steady beat beneath my ear. One day, I thought, our children would sit here too. They would climb into his lap and demand the story, the real one, not the polished bard versions. How their mother was summoned on a stormy night with nothing but a thin shawl and a heart full of desperation. How she faced the beast in his throne room and heard his terrible promise. How she chose him anyway, through poison, through rage, through the breaking of an ancient curse. They would hear how their father fought the monster inside himself because their mother refused to let him lose. How love chosen, fierce, mutual, had shattered chains no blade could touch. Kalin closed the book, set it aside, and pulled me fully into his lap. His hands framed my face. "What are you thinking?" he asked quietly. I smiled, tracing the crescent mark on his chest that matched mine. "About tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days we get to have now." His eyes softened. "Forever won't be long enough." I kissed him, slow, lingering, tasting the promise of every dawn without shadows. Outside, the first stars appeared. The keep breathed easy. Laughter echoed from the hall below where Mama told Torin bedtime stories. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, not in rage, but in joy. We were whole, and the darkness had learned to fear the light. Thank you for listening all the way through. If this story set your heart racing, hit like right now, drop a comment with your favorite moment. Be honest, I read every one, and share it with that friend who needs a dark, delicious escape. And if you're still not subscribed, tell me why in the comments. Don't leave me hanging, join the pack so the next storm can find you. See you under the moon.